from Nathan's view. Wow. Wow. Cat-like reflexes.
Oh goodness, Sebastian Coffre, another mistake for him, and he is a sitting duck down the front stretch here with the double draft here for Overbay and Ridders. Are they going to make it 3 wide? Ridders goes for it on Overbay, while Overbay goes for it on Coffre. Up the inside, coming into Clayton Corner, and Coffre might have to yield here. He's already lost the place to Overbay. He's going to switch to the outside and try and widen the entry to keep Ridders behind him. Looks like he is going to do that. Late apex, and that will work out all right for Sebastian Coffre, but it's slim pickings at the moment for the number 28.
Hammer is 3 for 3 currently, but his real-world schedule has not made it easy. A lack of practice in each round has meant he arrives at a disadvantage to his rivals. Yet, in spite of that, he seems to never be shaken in race trim. Mosport might be his competitor's last chance to throw him off his game, and we'll see if they can as we get ready to watch round 4 of the Absolute Beginners League. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Ryan Bauer, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Former home of the Canadian Grand Prix, this place is scenic and breathtaking. Let's head to our track guide to find out a little bit more about it. Welcome to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, or as most fans know it, Mosport. This circuit to the northeast of Toronto is a rarity in the world of racing today. Safety standards and the desire for more overtaking opportunities has caused most tracks to alter their layouts over the years. But Mosport is still exactly the same footprint as it was when it was built in 1961. A mere 11 turns, most of which are high-speed sweepers, are dispersed among 2.5 miles, or just shy of 4 kilometers. The only alterations to the turns have been to the runoff areas, but otherwise the radii, camber, and elevation changes are all untouched. Because cars have continued to get faster through the passage of time, it's made this place a fearsome beast to tackle. Clayton Corner is particularly notorious. The blind crest and steep plunge combined with incredibly high speeds to create a punishing combination. Without many heavy braking zones, passing is often difficult. And other than using the slipstream up the Mario Andretti straight, the only other option is usually Moss Corner. This double apex hairpin is named after Sir Sterling Moss for his suggestion to redesign it after he saw its initial layout. While the plateau-like middle portion and critical exit onto the backstretch certainly give it plenty of character, the heavy compression at the bottom of the hill that causes a frighteningly short braking zone makes this one not for the faint of heart. Formula One, USAC, and IMSA have all taken their turns here, but recently NASCAR has joined the fray by holding a round for the Truck Series. Old school fans can rejoice for the enduring popularity of this bastion of untouched tarmac, but any motorsports enthusiast can't help but smile at the thrill Mosport continues to provide. Well, DJ, the Great White North is going to offer up opportunities to be fast, but also to throw it away pretty easily.
Yeah, it certainly is, Joe. Look for corners, especially in these skippies like Clayton in Quebec, to be especially difficult, as you got to keep up as much momentum through those corners as possible while not being too hard on the brakes. As always, we've got to talk about one of the trickiest corners in all of motorsports, the double apex hairpin that is Moss Corner, rising up the hill, braking zone into there, always difficult. But then what makes it so crucial is you've got to get a good exit off of that to be able to get on the Mario Andretti straight away and really set yourself up for the best place to overtake, which is a tricky place to do it, which is going down into the S's. So altogether, I think, Joe, more than anything, this is going to be a battle of who can keep the car on the black stuff and minimize errors rather than rewarding tenacity in overtaking zones.
Absolutely. And if we take a look at the championship points at this stage, Philip Hammer is currently your leader by a pretty big margin. But look at the battle for second back there. Salander, Randall, Burns, all close in it. And Johan Vanderbilt not too far back as well. From there, you get a bit of a gap down to the battle for 6th, and then a tie even for 9th between Brain and Koppinen. What about in the team's championship? How are we on that?
Well, Joe, in that team's championship, NHR Esports holds the lead over Evolve Motorsports by about 15, but very close back there between them and Two Stupid Dogs. A little bit of a jump back to RT Racing, who's in a little bit of a, let's call it, battle with ABO Racing. Pretty tight there. Then on the way back from 7th on back, Street Trends Team 1 and Team 3, as well as AMR Racing Team and Wave Italy 1, all within 2 points of each other.
As for today's race details, it is another 50-minute race, as we've been seeing, and it's penultimate round. So it could be that it's potentially clinched here today by Philip Hammer, depending on what kind of race his rivals have. It is an open setup series, even though these are very simple cars. But the big one is there's actually 2 fuel stops that the drivers will have during this race. So strategy gets complicated by that. They do have a spare car waiting for them if they get damage that they can take during one of those pit stops. Or if they have damage outside of the pit stop window, well, you're just going to have to make it a 3-stopper here today. And right now they're just finishing up practice. And I can tell you that, as usual, Philip Hammer has shown up just moments ago to join here in the qualifying session without a single practice lap to his name, at least in this session. That's not to say he hasn't done it earlier in the week, but it amazes me that he can just show up each time, DJ, and just put the car down and go.
It's really incredible, Joe. I mean, sometimes you just have a feel for a car and you know how it's going to handle through the corners, and not being able to put down all that much quality time, it always surprises me. I know I need hours and hours and hours of time to be able to really master a track, and it just goes to show you just how good of a driver Philip Hammer is.
Well, as we watch them take off. This is an open qualifying, and it's only 10 minutes. They take a little bit to get around here compared to a lot of the higher-powered machinery, so it's about a minute and a half. So it's not going to be a whole lot of laps, and you do need that draft. You were talking about the slipstream up the Mario Andretti straight. I feel like that's going to really make a difference on who gets a good lap, but at the same time, I don't feel like you want to be held up by someone slow through the rest of the lap.
No, it's all about trying to find that perfect area, and frankly, where these guys are running right now, I'd anticipate this being a little bit too close for comfort. You're going to have to check your braking zone up just a little bit for the driver in front of you, but you're going to want a little bit of a bigger gap, but they will be able to maximize the draft here. But obviously, all of these drivers, very, very experienced. They know what they're doing, and they should be able to get some good laps down.
Can see them weaving a little bit. That is intentional. That's trying to heat up the tires as they take a bit for the tires to really get into the perfect range for these skippies. I'm sure they're maybe cranking the brake bias up a little bit as well to try and see if that will help along the way. But in general, it's going to be a couple laps before we see the quickest times put down, especially amongst this front group. You can see it's pretty good weather conditions as well at 78 Fahrenheit for the track surface, 26 Celsius. A little bit of wind. It is in the west. Got to check and see if that's going to be a headwind anywhere significant, especially on the Andretti straight.
Yeah, exactly. And if there is a little bit of headwind coming down the Mario Andretti straightaway, that's just going to make that draft all the more powerful. As there we see drivers just jockeying themselves around for positions there a little bit. That was Jeff Randall, I think, getting out of the way of David Burns as they come up here into Moss. Even in these underpowered skippies, so easy to lock up the tires and lose a little bit of time.
Well, it's going to be a crosswind, it turns out, across the Andretti straight. So not really going to play as big of a part, although maybe affect the balance slightly coming in and out of some of the faster corners, I'm sure. But for now, we watch David Burns try and pull on Neil Bamber and Jeff Randall behind him, as they've got a bit of cloud cover here as well in the early minutes of this qualifying session. Let's see who's going to have the first lap in that track position come the start of the race.
Well, that's going to be key. I do think the track position is going to be relatively crucial around here, so you want to try to get up towards the top of the charts if at all possible. And here come those times starting to cascade in.
A couple of them seem like it's not counting for them, but Burns has the provisional pole. Bamber in behind him. Where is Philip Hammer in this group? Hammer's running by himself. Now, usually I would say this is a bad idea for the number 60 car. Here you see him on screen. But we've seen in the past, DJ, that he goes out on his own and still beats those with a slipstream.
Yeah, I have no reasonable explanation for it, Joe. It defies logic. It is just a testament to how fast Philip Hammer is that he is able to do this without any benefit of the draft.
Dorsers just went up onto the front row with David Burns on this first lap, so that looks good for him. Look at the counter steering that Philip is having to do, and a little bit smoother down through the second part of the S's. What about here into White's corner? Yeah, that is looking so much better, but my goodness, he was cranking it in.
Yeah, really hauling it in. Let's see how he takes this first corner. It can be very tricky if you get a little bit too much of the curb, but Philip able to take it very well. Now he's going to line it up for Clayton's. Easy to lose the rear end here. A little bit of counter steering coming on in. A lot of back and forth, sawing on that wheel, but keeping a nice tight line all the way through.
And that first flying lap put him in second behind David Burns, about 0.3 of a second between himself and the 125 currently. Still chances to try and overtake him, especially if he still needs these tires to get up to temperature. And he's about half a lap behind everybody else. Looks like Burns improved to a 32.9. Salander goes to 0.05 behind Burns. And then Josh Brain, the next one down 0.7. It is a huge gap between the front row and the rest of the field.
Yeah, absolutely massive there between the two of them. So we'll have to see if anybody's going to be able to close that back down. Obviously, a little bit of draft trading. Whoa, Wojciech Podacek getting a little bit sideways coming through the first part of Moss, but able to catch the car.
Yeah, I'm watching to see those who are crossing the line, see if anybody is able to go much quicker. Vandenbelt is surprisingly low in the order. He's down in 14th right now. That second lap was his first one that counted. Wonder if he's struggling to try and find a clean one. I believe he had the same issue last week as well. And then Jean-Francois Tindachet has come across and put himself into 16th. So Philip Hammer, his second lap, that does improve, but only to third. He's still 0.2 off the pole time. Burns might have the measure of him today.
He may have the measure of him today, but it may just be a lack of slipstream that we see biting him. Wojciech Podacek able to put a time down on the board, only good enough for 16th place. By the way, this lap for Jeff Randall, one of the drivers that we were keeping our eye on earlier, this is going to be discounted. He had a big off through Moss.
So now Burns back across the line once again. And looks like that one was not quicker, but Bamber was faster, and he goes into third. So drivers are continuing to find speed out here. What about Tellini in 8th position, out of White's corner, getting a tow, and Tellini is going to not go faster, but Ludwig Sauer just in front of him actually did, but Ludwig spins and causes Giuseppe to have to go offline. That might have slowed him up ever so slightly.
Yeah, may have just that sort of fractional second of a reaction there. Could put him down. Waiting for some other times to come in. Kai Alpstead up to 11th. Looks like Titus de Jong, Jan Vandenbelt up into 8th. Watching all these times starting to tumble here a little bit more. Just waiting to see if anybody's able to improve in these dying minutes.
Remco Pleisure has his lap deleted. It looks like Philip Hammer doesn't improve yet again. He's still sitting in 4th. He'll get 2 more tries, I believe, on this. And then that is his day of qualifying done. Podacek on the second lap. Will this be any better? Off and around as he comes to the timing line. No, this one got deleted. So then it's Burns and Bamber once again. Bamber getting the tow this time.
Yeah, indeed he is. Maybe watch for these two to switch here at some point. Give that tow, crucial tow to David Burns. Let's see what Bamber's able to do on this lap. He's going to be able to improve, but not move up any positions. He's only going to be about 0.09 of a second off of Burns.
Ooh, Andre on the 140 doesn't go faster. That's bad news for him. And here comes Tellini, who we think might not be on a quick one since he had to take avoiding action. Yeah, he unfortunately was about 2/10 off of his best time. McGruther doesn't go quicker. And behind him, looks like Dana Bose improves up to 19th. Here's Marcus Beifelt in the meantime, who just came across the line. Good enough for 13th. That wasn't any quicker. Kai Alpstead continuing to chip away at his lap times. He jumps up to 5th.
That's a good time there for Alpstead, certainly. Looks like Deschute there not able to improve on that lap. Nicholas Anderson working his way around. Just saw Remco Pleiser able to go in, and there's Philip Hammer up to the top of the charts.
32.8. So Burns has a little less than a tenth to make up, but Burns is still not getting a slipstream. He is still handing it to Neil Bamber right now. But Philip Hammer eventually able to respond, and why did we ever doubt him in the first place? As he heads into Quebec, while Burns is coming through the S's and into White's corner. Here we go, out of the last turn. It does look like he's going to be faster as he crosses the line. 32.7, he strikes back. Burns is once again your pole sitter.
And he pulled along Bamber with him. Bamber about 28 thousandths of a second slower than Burns, but they're both able to jump over Philip Hammer, and so that's going to demote your championship leader down to 3rd.
I mean, this is really what they need to do. They need to best Philip Hammer if they hope for a chance coming into the final round. They need him to have a poor race here to catch up those 31 points. That is a massive difference, but this is bad news for them. Hammer is now getting a slipstream.
Yeah, this could be the great equalizer there. Hammer able to get that slipstream. Let's just hope he doesn't get a little bit bogged down by some of that traffic in front of him. He's going to be on it, though.
He is 6/10 up his best time. He is going to absolutely smash it here if he can keep this up around the final corner. The 60 crosses, and it's a 32.3, half a second quicker than David Burns.
Wow, Joe, absolutely laying down the law there for David Burns. Now, I will say Burns was green in his first sector. Bamber actually purple through sector 1, so there could be a little bit of a fight back here from these two.
It's going to take a lot here in this last bit, though, so we ride on board with Neil, chasing on David Burns through the last corner and down to the finish line. Don't think Burns is going to have it. He crosses, and it is a 32.7. That was just a few hundred slower than his best. Bamber doesn't improve either, unfortunately. We are at the checkered flag now.
Yeah, we are indeed waiting for these last couple of drivers to come across the line here to see what they've got. Let's see if Tellini's able to improve on his best time. Yes, that's going to be about a 0.5 of a second advantage. That'll bump him up to 7th.
McGruther is next. He looks like he's on a flyer, 33.7. Nice improvements, but it doesn't get him any spots, unfortunately. And I think McGruther is the last one on the track. That's it for our qualifying session. Wow, that was a thriller up at the top, but in the end, it seems that Philip Hammer made it no contest, really, as he is going to be starting on the pole today. David Burns will be starting next to him, hoping for a good start and maybe some fuel shenanigans to try and jump him. Neil Bamber will start from 3rd, as Andre Salander will be 4th, and it's Kai Alpstead in 5th rather. Wojciech Podacek will be P6, Giuseppe Tellini 7th. After that, Ludwig Zauer starts P8 today. Remco Pleiser 9th, and Josh Brain rounds out your top 10.
Starting up in 11th, it's going to be the fan belt of Johan Vandenbelt, followed by Titus de Jong with Micas Ballefeld and JT Koponen behind them. Terry McGruther will be in 15th, and then Ten Diostedt in 16th. Jeff Randall 17th with John Dorsers behind them. Dana Bose and Klaas Loden round out your top 20.
21st goes to Nico Heinen. Then you've got Tony Hayes, 22nd, and Nicholas Anderson, 23rd. Not a super big field, but they really don't need one at this track. It is not a very long track, so they certainly will see the traffic come into play, especially by the end of the race. But everybody is now gridding up. And round 4, I'm sure there's some nerves under the helmet for David Burns, DJ, knowing that he got bested again by Hammer and he really needs to beat him.
Yeah, I definitely think that there is going to be some controlled aggression coming from these top drivers here. David Burns, though, always one of the most composed drivers in the field, so it'll be interesting to see how he responds.
And it's not Burns in second. I know we've been making a big deal, but he's usually the main rival to Hammer. Salander is the closest one to him, and then Jeff Randall is the next one back. But Jeff Randall is not doing too hot in qualifying this time around. He starts from 17th. We're just waiting for the last of them to get in there, including the Salander, which he is now out on the grid. Looks like we're all set and ready to go. It's round number 4 out of 5 here in the Absolute Beginners League. The lights are up. Who is going to get the good start? Green flag is out. And it looks pretty decent for Burns as he gains a little bit off the line over Hammer, but it's a short run down into the first corner as they plunge downhill. Mostly single file in those top 4 behind them. Little bit of side by side into the turn.
Yeah, everybody keeping it relatively composed, largely side by side, largely single file, as you said. This first part of the track, not really an area where you want to try to go multi-wide as everybody works their way down into Clayton now.
And I love the patience that you can see in this series in the first few laps. Everybody's taking it easy through Clayton because often that will end drivers' races before they even finish that first lap. But no dramas for these guys. Meanwhile, down into the braking for the Moss hairpin. Here comes David Burns trying to see if he can gain under the brakes, but he still has Neil Bamber right on top of him, and Salander back there too. The Slipstream Battles begin.
Indeed they do. Here we go. This is where we're going to find out what it is. Now for Philip Hammer, he is going to want to try to break away from that slipstream as quickly as possible. And for David Burns, he does not want to let it go whatsoever. A little bit of a poke out there for Burns. Running behind, I think that's Salander and Hodacek a little bit side by side. Behind them, Tellini, Alpstead, and Sauer.
Breaking down into the S's, no change between your top 4, but a little bit of side-by-side back there with Sauer and Alpstead, as DJ mentioned. Looks like Sauer is going to come out with the advantage in that 7th position, but he's got to hustle because in front of him, it looks like Tellini is starting to drop him slightly. That slipstream going to be oh so important.
Yeah, it really is, and it's really only going to exist on the second part of this lap. That's what's going to make things a little bit interesting here, Joe. A little bit of a breakaway for the leaders, about 0.3 of a second between Burns and Bamber right now. That's what they need to see.
There you see Burns in the orange machine, Hammer in the black and white with red trim. We hop on board with Third Degree as he gives chase. He might be using that slipstream not just to hold on to the back of him, but maybe to save a little bit of fuel as well, as that can often be critical in the strategy in these races. Little look to the inside from Bamber, but not a serious one.
No, not at all. Behind them, though, Bamber's going to have to keep an eye on Salander, Podacek, and Tellini. Salander and Podacek in particular, very, very close behind. Definitely starting to get a tow. Vocek going to be able to pick up that 2-way draft there. That'll definitely help him.
Yeah, a double pull with Salander and Bamber just leading the way. But Bamber doesn't want to mess around too much here. He wants to hold on to David Burns. Wants to make sure that he's still in the fight for the lead, and as they all slow up for the S's, yeah, top 6 have not split enough, but behind them, look at this. This is getting to be a bit more of a mess. That's Pleisure fighting with Sauer, and Vandenbelt in there as well. Alpstead got shuffled way back.
And that's what can happen in some of these draft trains. If you're not careful, you can just get that massive shuffle backwards, and you've got to be very, very careful not to lose your composure when you do it. There's still plenty of time to be able to come in if you're still in one of these draft trains. Little bit of a wide run there.
Yeah, kicking up some dirt, but thankfully does not spin the car across, leading this group. Pleisure trying to shake them get away here through some of the quicker corners down into Quebec once again. Got to wonder if Vandenbelt, once again, maybe slightly out of position. Oh, something's happened to Bamber. Bamber is slowed. And did he have an off track through Quebec? Yes, he did.
Oh, and that's going to put Bamber back down the order 0.6 of a second off at Cellini. He's going to have to hustle here to keep up behind.
Yeah, that provides a gap between Burns and Salander. That's bad news for this group of 4. This actually could help Pleasure catch the back of him. He's about 1.3 behind as well. So this is now all a big question mark. And moving to the front, a change for the lead, I believe, as Philip Hammer essentially allows Burns through after he got a good enough slipstream. Now he wants to try and run away from the rest of the pack to make this a 2-horse race.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're going to see these two try to maybe start to do, play a little bit of leapfrog. Whoa! That was Philip Hammer getting a little bit squirrely.
So he's not perfect. He is human as he finally makes a mistake out there. And he's going to have to get back on his horse and see if he can catch back up to our leader Burns now with the fastest lap of the race. As Podacek is currently the leader of that second group, has taken over the point from Salander and is doing his darndest to gun down the top 2.
Yeah, indeed he is, and Burns starting to build a little bit of a gap here. He was very, very quick through the second and third sector here, fastest lap times overall. And so I've got to wonder a little bit if he's got some outright speed, he can start to pull away.
Podacek up 3 from where he began. We're watching from on board Tellini, the Italian driver, up 2 from where he began this race. Nobody really having a go down into the braking from Moss. And then off the corner, it's now everybody trying to get on the throttle as soon as they can.
Yeah, and that's the trick, really finding down that point where you can just mash the throttle. Here comes Hammer, though. Looks like those two are going to play a little bit of leapfrog. Jumping back and forth. Hammer having to go the long way around the curving Andretti straightaway, but Burns not fighting.
Oh, and contact behind them. Oh, no, Podacek is in the wall. They went 3 wide as they were trying to swap the lead, or the lead of that group, rather. And for Wojciech, it went horribly awry.
Oh, is there you see that opening there, a little bit of overambition as they come down trying to give space, just a check there to Podacek, had it back up under him, and then that secondary contact sending him into the outside wall.
And unfortunately, 43 minutes left. I don't know. That'd be very tight on if he can make it back. He took a tow anyway, so he's definitely going to be at a disadvantage. Looked like Nico Heinen has pitted in. I'm not sure if he had an incident that we missed, but he'll return in 22nd. Back to Vandenbelt now here in 7th position. The Fan Belt gets promoted to 2nd in this group, just behind Remco Pleasure with Sauer on their tails.
Indeed, as they start to close in here, all this draft keeping everybody close together, and we're getting closer and closer to that point of pit stop cycle. Oh, there's a big off there for Pleasure.
Yeah, it's so easy to do through Moss. So honestly, closes up the gap. It's suddenly a huge pack now in the middle of the field. There's Pleasure in the teal car at the very back that you can see, just desperately hoping that he'll get some tow from those ahead. Don't need to go to it, but Burns and Hammer make another pass for the lead. This little side-by-side that we see on your screen, that is Vandenbelt and McGruther along with Alpstead and Brain. Looks like McGruther is going to come out ahead of the front 2, and then behind it's going to be Alpstead. Instead, De Schutte is going to try and continue to battle as a spin behind them. Jeff Randall, oh no, one of our championship competitors falls down the order.
Indeed, is there you see him coming around. Let's watch exactly what happened. Now, this is coming over the crest there, going through the S's. Little bit of a lockup in front of him, and that just causes him to sort of put on the brakes as he's in full steering lock. Not the greatest way around.
Well, back to Neil Bamber once again. He's gotten up to 5th after he also had an off just in that very corner we rode through before, and through Quebec, and he's staying with Tellini and Salander and 3rd and 4th. The unfortunate thing is that Burns and Hammer are doing a magnificent job working together and have been getting frighteningly fast laps to run away from everybody else.
Yeah, they have been really, really pushing it and building that gap up to about 3.5 seconds, doing that nice little bit of leapfrog that we talked about. That's exactly what you want to see them do here at this point.
Another switcheroo, and they get a nice little run to the line behind them. Looks like it is now going to be Tellini who leads Salander. Instead, Bamber stays back in 5th. Wonder if he's just thinking, I've fallen too far behind. Let's just ride both of these guys and save some fuel. And look at this. Once again, these guys love racing side by side here. De Jong, De Schutte, and Brain. With Brain taking the 9th place, it looks like Jean-Francois is going to find himself in 10th.
He is indeed, as that shuffles around here. I'm waiting to see just how much these drivers are really able to save some fuel, Joe. Maybe eke out another lap on the pit stop strategy, as that is one of the big advantages you talked about running in these trains. Little bit of some alternate lines there coming down through Clayton. Not exactly what I would expect.
So I'm finding out that Nico Heinen did have some sort of damage because he's taken his spare car. Podacek is back out there in his spare vehicle, still on the lead lap impressively, but Philip Hammer is just down the road. Meanwhile, look at him plunge down through turn 4, almost 2 by 2. Jean-Francois will keep that 9th place, or take the 9th place away from Josh Brain, rather. Is Brain going to get the fight back, or will he want to fight back?
Well, that's the real question here. If he wants to just kind of stay where he is, or if he wants to try to push his way up forward a little bit, continuing to go down here down the Mario Andretti straightaway. This is where all of that swapping has taken place. Seeing Sauer moving ahead 3 wide.
Certainly not shy there, Titus. So he gets himself the 9th place at the front of that group, but they don't seem to be as organized as some of the other ones that we've been watching, where it's just 2 cars or maybe 3. This group of 4 or 5 has been swapping around in and out, and now it looks like Jean-Francois is going to have to maybe give up to Brain. Nope, Brain is the one that gives way and falls down into 11th behind them. Ooh, going off the course. That was Alpstead. And looks like Beifeldt is the one kind of sitting pretty, waiting and saving fuel.
Yeah, just waiting and saving is the name of the game here as we tick down under 40 minutes to go in this race. Anticipate pit stops probably firing off within the next 5 to about 10 minutes or so. Waiting here behind Beifeldt, you can see just ahead of him, that's Josh Brain thinking about a little bit of a look there on the number 1 machine, but not going to want to do it going down into Moss. You see all the steering that you have to put on through that corner. So tricky to get it right.
Yeah, for those keeping track, the pit window is about 20 to 25 minutes in length before they must pit. It's the farthest anybody can go on this fuel tank. Burns and Hammer swapping around. Back to Hammer up at the front. Tellini now leads Salander. And Bamber continues to ride behind them. Oh, as there we go. Looks like a little bit of feistiness between Magruder and Vandenbelt. Magruder fights back down into White's corner. Vandenbelt tries to cut underneath and get the launch down the main straight. Didn't quite get it like he hoped. Instead, Ludwig Sauer is now also ready to pick it up and put it down.
Yes, he is, as they work their way around right now. Sauer trying to see if he can be able to get anything to come up behind the fan belt. Johan taking a little bit of a more narrow line through Clayton, seeing what he can do. It's going to help him on the run, but I doubt it's going to set him up for a move into Quebec.
Believe we've had a couple regular stops. Koppinen and Lodane have been in and out and still carrying on this fight, not willing to give it up. Sauer is going to try and go wheel to wheel down through turn 4. You can in these cars, although that's a bit sketchy like that, as Vandenbelt just clips the grass, catches the car in time to break for Moss.
Whew, you can't get much more on the limit than that. You've got to be careful here, boys. You still got over half this race left to go.
And they're already about a full 10 seconds behind these two, which now give Hammer back the lead. And we should see a pit in for one of them ever shortly. So we could see those who want to go long, though. 25 minutes would be just about halfway, but anybody who makes it that far might be trying to one-stop it, as looks like Vandenbelt has now forced Magruder to get out of this fight and to pit in himself. He's reached the pit window, and Josh Brain is also in.
Yeah, so a couple of drivers opting to come down. Now, pitting here is going to be a little bit of a mixed bag, Joe, because A, you will be able to get yourself out in clean air, and really for the first 2 sectors of this lap, that's going to be very, very good. The bad part of it is on that 3rd sector, you're going to lose that draft, and you don't really want to wind up running alone there. You're going to be able to get better times if you've got a drafting buddy, so it's a little bit of a catch-22 if you opt to pit by yourself.
Yeah, I got to think that finding somebody to team up with is going to be advantageous, especially if you can get someone who's close and on pace itself. Ludwig seems decently close to Johan Vandenbelt, so maybe the two of the Benelux drivers will decide it's worth it to work together, and they'll pit in. We should be able to go from here, as there we go. Another swapping around just in front of them. That's going to be Tellini and Salander once more. Well, no doubt Bamber is back there just lifting and coasting into the corners.
Yeah, Bamber, I would not be surprised to see if he's the one who's able to make this fuel cycle work the longest. Let's wait and see if anybody scampers down pit lane. No, all 3 going to stay out here for now. Woo, that was a wide one there for Bamber.
Oh, but Hammer is in. Hammer seems to think he's going to be quicker without Burns, and, well, I kind of don't blame him if he feels that way. Burns, though, has he saved any fuel to maybe be able to take the fight to him, or is his strategy to just hold on to Philip Hammer to try and slipstream by and snooker him at the finish?
It certainly could be, Joe. I mean, that's the latter is what we've seen David Burns do so many times, is just have yourself back in good position and be able to absolutely fly. As we have a driver off in the back, that looks to be the number 13 of Kai Alpstead.
Oh, it was such a good day up to there. He's probably going to take his spare car if he hit anything, but let's see if he did. Is this down through Clayton? No, this might be through Clayton. It's hard to get away from that one without getting some sort of damage. These cars aren't fast enough that they're automatically in the barriers, but looks like, oh no, this is down into turn 4. Excuse me, I was looking at it wrong.
Here's here's that replay. Just loses a little bit of traction coming down through Clayton and catches the grass onto Quebec. Oh, that's going to be damage. Yeah, that's going to be a lot of damage to that car.
He's kept going, but surely he has to pit in this time. I thought I heard somebody else entering in. David Burns responds, so he's savvy to what Hammer is trying to pull. Hammer came back in 13th, actually with a little bit of help. He had Tony Hayes with him, so maybe he did get a tiny bit of slipstream, but he also could have been held up somewhat. And Burns hits his pit stall, taking his service now. Hammer with a 13.8. Burns, let's see, does he short fuel? Nope, looks like he's going about the same distance on fuel here, but it's slightly longer, 14.3, half a second slower. Hammer's now coming out. Will he be able to retain the slipstream? That's a yes.
All right, so almost nothing separating these two yet again. That's going to be Tony Hayes, who hasn't pitted, coming out directly behind them, but that is a good pit stop sequence for David Third Degree Burns there. He's able to stay within a tenth of it. He's able to stay within a second. He'll be able to stay close behind.
And Tellini's liking this because he gets to lead a lap, so he is now P1. Salander is going to maybe take that away from him, and Bamber just sitting back there watching it all unfold. Will we maybe see Neil pit in this time earlier? Is he going to try and go as long as he can, I wonder? And currently entering up into the S's, not making any moves, but Salander, now your driver at the top of the timing sheets, looking for the pit entry, and only one goes. No, two goes. It's Tellini and Bamber.
All right, so Tellini and Bamber, a little bit of a lock up there from Tellini coming down into pit lane, making sure that he's able to get that pit speed limit down and on right. Looks like Pleisier, DeLong, Byfield, a lot of drivers coming in here. I think this is about the end of that pit stop sequence.
Yeah, so maybe only Jean-Francois in the number 1 and Salander in the 140 able to go on past. No, Tony Hayes is going to go for another one. But Nick Anderson is in. So only 3 cars making it to lap 13 here today. And this means that Hammer and Burns have been promoted back into 3rd and 4th. Burns, though, looking like he's trying to push hard to retain that slipstream from Phil.
Yeah, he certainly is having to cook it here a little bit, and I'd be worried if that's going to set him off. Then he was able to pretty much save as much fuel as he wanted to in that first pit stop sequence, not really have too much to worry about. But now with Burns, he's going to have to push to stay up behind him.
Got to be honest, this is one of my favorite Dougie Beard cameras he set up for the onboards there in the roll hoop. Just a very neat little look. But coming back up, yeah, he's about 5/10 behind. I think he's going to feel enough of the pull that he should finally be there. That is a lapped car behind them right now, so don't need to worry about that. And as the rest of the drivers come in, looks like Salander pits. Deschute has pitted. And then all we need is Tony Hayes to pit in. But David Burns cuts it down to 0.3 of a second. They will inherit the lead this time by.
Yes, they will indeed, as that 140 and the 1 do come down pit lane here. And now that gap between Hammer and Burns has come back to right where it was before the break. So this is going to be just another draft fest. It looks like a big gap between themselves and Tellini. It looks like as things start to equalize out, it's Salander that's actually going to come out ahead, but that's going to be about 9.5 seconds.
And that puts him... Oh, Tellini got ahead of him, though. And it looks like Bamber did as well. But Bamber is going to be behind Tellini. And then they've also caught up with Jeff Randall, who is a lap down. So he's not involved in that. So anybody who is looking for a short second stint, they can pit about 24 minutes to go based on what we saw before. There were a few that just about stretched it to 25 minutes, but it was quite close. 20 minutes rather, I should say. So excuse me, it should be to about 20 minutes to go rather that they can make it to.
Yeah, that's about what we're going to be looking at. Ooh, little bit of a battle there happening in the back. Is everybody moving their way this way and that? That is going to be everybody working their way by, I believe, Josh Brain.
Yeah, and Randall also that we saw pulling off to the side. And there is Josh Brain with McGruther ahead of him and Vandenbeld behind him. Pleisier fell all the way to 9th. And hasn't been able to do much to shake the big train behind him. You're just seeing a bit of them in the background of these shots. Ludwig Sauer, Titus de Jong, Marcus Byfeld, and Jean-Francois Deschute in there as well. We still have 20 of our drivers on the lead lap of the 23 that started this race, and we've only lost Wojciech Podacek. Nico Heinen is back out after some more repairs.
Well, and Joe, that really goes to show you just the strength of this field. I mean, we are talking about a relatively short lap here around Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. And so for drivers to be able to stay on the lead lap, just as many as they have, really impressive stuff. And the leaders don't look like they're going to catch a lot of lap traffic, it has to be said.
It surprises me a little bit. Would have thought that they'd begin to get some of the back markers, even by this point. Just about at the halfway mark of this race. And then up the hill we go. I can tell you that Hammer and Burns are starting to swap around again. So nice, easy cooperation with them at the point of the field. Will there be cooperation from Bamber as Tellini gets the momentum to try and overtake?
Yep, here comes Tellini. Let's see if he's going to be able to have it down. Yes, he is. He's got that charge. That's going to put Bamber back down into 4th place. Salander right behind as well.
This might be the settle-in period. This might be where strategy is a little bit more important for these drivers. We saw a few of them earlier, DJ, trying to use the draft to make speed if you're guys like Burns and Hammer. And some of them use the draft to just save fuel and just wait behind, or maybe simply ride the coattails of somebody faster. But here, I'm seeing very little movement amongst the groups.
Yeah, I think you're right, Joe. This is very much the settle-in period as we take about 30 seconds away from the halfway point in the race. I think drivers know where their cars are, know what position their cars are capable of. Doesn't necessarily mean they're in the position that they think that they can finish it out, but they know what it is. Looking at these two, obviously, Burns and Hammer, they know they've got a car to win the race. But looking back in that further group, Tellini, Bamber, Salander, Magruder, all of those guys, I think for them, that's going to be a little bit more of a position where they're like, all right, we know we've got a podium car. Let's just bring it into position for the last stages of this race where we're going to be able to put ourselves in a spot to capitalize on that podium.
Absolutely. In fact, that one's changing between Bamber and Tellini now. So I spoke too soon. You did see Hammer and Burns swap around yet again. And Bamber is now going to be your leader of the second group. So we got the front two, then we've got 4 of them down from 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. And then another trio, Magruder, Brain, and Pleasure, 7th, 8th, and 9th. They're all kind of splitting off into these packs.
Yeah, definitely a pack split off is the way I'd say. Very, very sideways there for Philip Hammer. Just goes to show you that despite the fact that these guys have a nearly 11-second lead, neither one of them backing off.
Coming around and towards the plunging turn 4. Elevation change here is something to behold. It is really, really incredible. Part of what makes it not only a challenge, but just gorgeous to watch from and see these cars really use that gravity to help them get that extra speed and then have to carry the momentum back up. We're going to watch from Salander. Let's see how he handles the exit of this hairpin.
Got to be careful there getting on the throttle, and it looks like he's been able to pick it up quite well. Maybe lost about a 0.5 of a second there. Not able to get on it as quickly as he wanted to. So this is going to pull him close in behind Tellini. I'm not sure how well the draft is going to be in effect here. Doing maybe a little bit of lifting and feathering. Tellini certainly thinks like he's got a good run as he's going to move to the outside of Bamber.
So those two going to swap. And now back into line they go. Also want to mention we've had some pretty good movers in here. The one that stands out the most is the 888 of Magruder back in 6th position. He's up 9. He was up 8 moments ago, but he just overtook Vandenbeld as those two swap back and forth. But nobody's close to that number 888 at this stage of the race in terms of spots gained.
No, nobody is close at all. That 9th position, the 9 positions up, very, very important. The only other close one we have is Dana Bose, who's up 5. That is the closest to it. Leading on in this train, though. And Joe, you hit the nail on the head. This is definitely the settling in period of this race.
All right, well, back out of Quebec once again as Pleasure keeps kind of poking himself back and forth. Got to be thinking, man, I could have been up in that chance for the podium here today. Instead, I'm just seeing whether or not I could potentially get 6. Oh, as things almost come to contact between Magruder and Vandenbeld. Things accordion so much into that hairpin. I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen more drivers get into each other.
Yeah, I am too. And like I said, because it's such a tricky way to do it, the accordion really takes effect because you have to be bleeding on the throttle, just very slightly starting to apply it as you put steering lock in to get you up the curve and then very rapidly straighten it out and get down onto the binders as that's a gaggle of cars coming down into the S's.
Well, they've decided they have had enough of this sitting around and letting the race come to them. It's time to have some fun, but it will remain with McGruder at the front of the group. Vandenbelt in second, but it looks like Pleasure moves himself into 8th, past Sauer. Josh Brain still at the tail of the train, rather.
Yeah, waiting around there is Josh Brain. Now, I'm going to be interested to see if he is maybe in just big fuel-saving mode, trying to eke out a few more laps on these drivers. We anticipate that window probably opening in about a minute and extending down to about 15, call it 12 minutes to go.
Yeah, so we are starting to reach that point where we could see some drivers dive in here if they want an early stop, if they think they're faster than all those that they're racing with. And coming up and over the Moss hairpin. Looks like that was a very good run from Johan Vandenbelt. I think he might try and overtake on McGruder here if he wants to. Looking to see if we get anybody into pit lane. Klaus Lodane, who is a lap down, looks like he's going to take an early stop. So he's the first one to bite, but he's not in competition for an upper spot like we see like many of these drivers. Holy cow, here comes Sauer, absolutely launching into the S's past Pleasure. And side by side, 2 by 2 through the S's. Vandenbelt will get the job done into 6th.
Yes, he does. Not a lot of fight put up there, but you're definitely starting to see elbows come out a little bit more. That was Johan running a little bit wide, coming out of that final White's corner. That's going to reopen the door there to Terry McGruder. He's going to stick it down the inside.
Wow, carrying on. So yeah, I think they felt like we're not going to catch that pack above us. Let's just have some fun here. And whoop, that's a little too far out. Good catch from McGruder. Keeps it from becoming disaster as he dipped 2 wheels into the grass through Quebec.
That is normally a one-way ticket out into the vast expanses of grass on the outside of Clayton there, Joe. I am amazed he held on to that.
Let's take a look at the replay on board, because I'd love to see what his hands were doing there. I know I would have been frantically sawing away trying to save that car. But credit to everybody involved. Did not become a spin, didn't become others running into them. As they climb back up the Andretti straight one more time, let's take another look.
All right, so this is, I think we need to go back just a little bit more on this because he was coming down into Clayton's when that happened. Here it is. This is what we're talking about. That's McGruder there to the outside. You can see that car just completely sideways as he goes around. Amazing catch there. You should not have been able to keep that together.
Certainly not. We're going to, I think, get a perspective from McGruder now. Already on the outside line. Not a fun place to be. Into the dirt. Couple stabs, and then eventually it settles down and she carries on.
Wow, that was all kinds of close, Joe. Just the perfect amount of throttle application and ready to put that down. Good stuff there from Terry McGruder, and didn't really lose all that much positioning.
And, okay, Tellini has headed in. This may have been something unintentional from him. Nico Heinen was spun at the side of the track and pulling across, and that kind of put Tellini offline. I think he figured, okay, I'm heading there. Might as well take the pit stop now since we're in the window.
Well, speaking of that, it also looks like, while we were watching that, Philip Hammer has come down pit lane. So one of your leaders is making the call to make the final pit stop here. David Burns all up on his lonesome for the lead.
Got to think that David is going to be coming in this time too. Mirror exactly what Hammer is doing. Don't let him get the advantage over you. And yes, indeed, he is pitting. And then behind them, as we watch this fight carry on, already had McGruder in a bad moment. Did they make contact there coming through 8?
Maybe a little bit of door banging as more drivers opting to come down pit lane. That is Terry McGruder, waiting to see where David Burns is going to come out in relation to his rival Philip Hammer as this pack streaks on by him.
So Magruder wants to get out of this. And no, looks like no contact between Magruder and Sauer there. So they kept it safe. So we watch from Hammer. Now where is... Oh, he's right in front of him. So Vanderbilt managed to get, Burns managed to get in front of him. And with a little bit of distance, I don't think he's going to be able to shake him, though. That's the bad news. If he could have come out without the slipstream behind him, that would have been great. But right now, it's looking likely that you're going to see Hammer just recollect and gather him up.
Yeah, it's about 6/5 of a second right now as they make their way up through the Moss hairpin. Really sliding that car through the corner is Philip Hammer, so he knows he needs to get the proverbial hammer down here and really get a move on. But 0.6 of a second, he's not going to lose the draft at that point.
That was Titus de Jong in the green car that you saw slow them going by. He spun coming out of Quebec, so that's why he was a little bit off pace. So now we're waiting on the top 8 to pit in ahead of these two who were leading. And I think Pleiser's going to be one. So is Josh Brain. Beifeld will be pitting. Will Deschutes also come in? No, he's going to be a little bit of a nuisance for David Burns. He does not have to pull out of the way. This is for position, but Jean-Francois still needs to take fuel to make it to the end.
Yes, he does, and so that's going to be a little bit of a wrinkle in the side here of everybody. Jean-Francois not having any intention of getting down the way. Hammer sending a big move down to the inside of Clayton.
Yeah, that all started from a big bobble that we saw on screen as Burns came off of turn 1, clipped the dirt, and did not have the speed off the corner. Hammer figured it was time to go, and he is past. So now the only ones in front of him are Salander, Bamber, Vandenbelt, Sauer, and Duchetta. And in fact, Duchetta might get overtaken here because Hammer doesn't look like he wants to just sit and ride behind.
No, I think he does not want to do anything. He has his fuel numbers here at this point. He knows what he needs to hit, and my best guess is that he already has that down. So definitely going to try to get a move done here on Duchetta.
Up the hill. Yep, he's finally got that slipstream, but it's given a double toe back to third degree. Is he going to be able to use it to get fully past? No, I think he's decided better to just wait behind. And, but he's getting held up by Jean-Francois, who still holds the inside through turn 8, and that cost David Burns a 10th or 2.
Yeah, it cost him a 10th or 2, but the gap's still under a second, so he should be okay. By the way, Johan Vandenbelt coming down pit lane. Obviously, Duchetta did not there, so he's trying to eke this out as long as he can.
Looking through to see if anybody had a big jump on those last bit of stops. Tolini was short on his one, so he must have had a longer stop in his first one and taken a short one the second time around. Oh, and way out into the grass, pushing that yellow-nosed number 8 car was Marcus Beifeld there. Just had a little trouble. Tony Hayes in behind him as well. They're coming upon Josh Brain and Remco Pleiser in front of them.
Yeah, coming up along here, waiting to see what it is. Little bit of a look down to the inside there. Magruder, I think, maybe had to go a little bit of defensive on Beifeld, as Beifeld starting to look a little bit aggressive. I think he's ready to get pushing.
Plunging into the Moss hairpin once again. This could be a make or break sort of corner. If you run wide and lose the draft in this group, that's it for them. Bamber finally pits. Salander carries on. And Sauer is in.
All right, waiting to see Duchetta still staying out, so he looks like the highest driver along with Salander staying out. So a little bit of alternate pit strategies here, but I'd imagine here, I've got to think that Salander and Duchetta are going to be coming down this next lap.
Now it's Magruder's chance to work his way up in front of these two. And where will our pitting drivers come out in this equation? See, Sauer still just getting out now. So he might join in. Yep, he's going to join in on the fun. But there we go. We have them on screen now. And he's going to come out right in the middle of it with Hayes just squeaking by, maybe. No, he's going to hang tough. Oh, and things almost come together. Thankfully, they don't hit. And Hayes will get 12th with that brave move.
Whew, that was Tony Hayes really sticking it out there. You saw just how close Sauer was to the edge of the track, almost having that incident like we saw before, where we jump back up to Marcus Beifeld as this battle for P10 continues to rage on, trying to get by Terry McGruther.
McGruther up 5. So he's not as high as I thought he would have been here, but he's been doing pretty decent today. In the final 10 minutes to go, Salander is in. Hammer will carry on, and unless Jean-Francois doesn't pit, that should be everybody. Nope, looks like the one car is also in, and Andre has to go all the way down to his stall. A little bit timid on his way in, maybe just couldn't see it through Podacek. Hammer once again is your leader, but Burns is not terribly close behind now.
No, it looks like he's dropping back just a little bit. Remember that I said once those moves were made and Deschette was involved in the situation, he should be able to gain back in on about that 0.6 of a second gap. Well, he really hasn't been able to do that. It's stayed pretty stagnant there. I'm getting the sense that Hammer is just absolutely pushing and Burns doesn't have that big of a response.
Yeah, it seems like it's maybe pulling him along, but it's not actually giving him a chance to pass. Let's stay with this up the Andretti straight. This might be telltale right here, especially if we see Burns get a good launch. It's not great, but it's not bad either. He closes into 0.5 of a second. That's at the start of the Andretti straight. Let's see what it is once they reach turn 8.
Let's see, indeed, it is coming down as they keep going around here, waiting to see what this is going to be. Down under 0.2 of a second, so Burns not letting this slip away. Is he going to go for a move? No, he's going to stay behind, but that gap is down to pretty much where we saw it for most of this race.
That's exactly what he needed. Burns does not want to lose touch with this now, because if he can stay within those 0.2, he could maybe vie for the win. We're going to be less than 9 minutes to go as we cross the line, and that Andretti straight could change up the leader multiple times down the backstretch on the last lap. So where do you want to be? Do you want to be leading, or do you want to be the chaser trying to come on through and snipe it at the end?
I think at this point I would, and this is strange, I normally say you want to be in that chasing position. I think because of the difficulty to get past coming through the S's, I think you want to be in the lead because you want to choose where to position your car, Joe. Remember those S's, they come in at a right, left, right, and I think you want to try to position yourself to the right on the circuit. You may lose out a little bit through the second part of the S's, but once you get into White's corner, you're going to have the preferred line, and that's really what this is going to come down to if it's this close.
So is Burns going to do any more reconnaissance? Is he going to try and test this slipstream to see what kind of advantage it'll give him down the straight at this distance back, or has he already gathered that up in the first half of the race? He's going to test it. He goes up to the left-hand side, but will he fully try and take the lead, or is he going to back out of it to remain in second place? No, he's going to fully take the lead.
All right, so he doesn't want to wait around here. 7.5 minutes to go. He's going to pull out ahead. Hammer only about 2.5 behind, so this battle clearly going to still rage on.
And behind them, I think Tellini and Bamber also switched around for 4th position. Salander is basically all by himself trying to take the last podium spot, but it looks like Bamber and Tellini are trying to run him down, so that might change as down into Clayton, the second corner. Hammer does not wait until the backstretch. He immediately takes him right back.
All right, so Hammer clearly thinking how I was, that he wants to be in the lead of this race the entire time. 6 minutes and 40 seconds remaining. He's got the gap up to almost 0.5 of a second.
Gotta hustle if you're David Burns. Gotta hustle even more if you're Philip Hammer, trying to shake him. 6 minutes left to go, 6.5 minutes. Oh, and Ludwig Sauer might be our latest DNF. Oh no, big moment coming out of the first corner. Single car incident, but he smashed it up good, and I believe he's done.
Let's go back and take a look at the replay. Catches a little bit of that inside curbing. That car's all over the place from the beginning. Catches the outside grass, and that is a hard hit to the wall.
Yeah, that's why I'm pretty certain he's done. Even if he has a spare car, he needs a tow, and he'll need to take the spare car to get back out on track. He's down to 19th right now. He's not really going to get that great of a finish. Through the S's between Hammer and Burns. It is Burns back up to the lead, crossing the line at about 5.5 minutes to go.
5.5 minutes to go. It's about 1.5 minute laps around here, so I'll let you do the math on that. Hammer again, looking very aggressive, does not want to be the one following here. Is he going to send another big move? That was more of a catch than anything coming out of turn one.
It's getting ever more tense out here. Drivers making mistakes, some of them ending their race late in the day because of it. I say late in the day, it's actually only 10 a.m. virtual standard time here. So the sun has been continually rising, just adding a little bit more heat a bit at a time. Each and every lap they come around. Into the braking of Moss Corner and covering off that early turn, and it looks like Burns wants to retain that track position.
Yeah, he does. He's being a little bit more defensive here, a little bit more aggressive in the way that he is holding on to that line. The gap's about 0.4 of a second. Let's see what Hammer does here if Hammer wants to try to get himself back up front.
So far, he's pulling him in, but he might be a little too far back this time. He could try and make a late move. I wouldn't advise it, though, and yeah, he listens to that wisdom as he's going to sit back. But he does seem to like that thrust out of turn one towards Clayton, where he makes that overtake.
Yeah, that seems to be his strong position as they go. We'll see. I mean, the problem is especially on the last lap, if you move to make an overtake there into Clayton and through this first corner, you're going to leave yourself open to an attack on the backstretch. So we'll have to see what he does.
So maybe this is a part of Philip Hammer's ploy then. Maybe he does want to be back there in second place. A little bit of a correction coming off of Clayton Corner. And we have what looks like 4 laps to go. No, that can't be correct. I think we got 3 laps to go here.
Yeah, I think that's about right, Joe, although never trust a commentator's math. Hammer not looking like he wants to attack. I wouldn't expect an attack coming into Moss. You can get that done if you're super aggressive, but with just as much of the draft that we've seen working down the backstretch, no need to do it there. 0.3 of a second advantage as they come out of the corner. That's one of the closer gaps that we've seen. If Hammer wants the move, it is ripe for the taking.
Yep, he's definitely got the speed. He's going to carry it. And he's going on through. So yeah, looks like maybe he does want the track position. So no games here for the 60, as the Diaz driver just wants to lead, just wants to do this the usual way instead of trying to get too clever for his own good. They're about 14 seconds past Salander, who sits in third, still trying to be run down by Tellini and Bamber. We'll give you an update if that changes on that front. And yeah, now down to 2 laps to go for these drivers as they fly past the start-finish line. And David Burns is now the man in second. So will Burns try to be tricky? Will Burns sit around, wait for the white flag before he starts to attack? Or is he going to go this time?
Yeah, I was about to say, Joe, that's the real question here. We are going to learn what Burns' strategy is on this lap. If we see a push coming down the backstretch, we know he wants to be in the lead in that last lap. If not, if we hear him back off a little bit, then he thinks he's going to have a better chance just keeping everything woed back under him and absolutely making the push going down into the Mario Andretti straightaway, coming to the checkered flag.
All right. As they start to accelerate away, I'm listening to his throttle inputs to hear if he starts to lift as he gets closer. 0.2 of a second between them, and he's not closing. He is not closing. I think he is running partial throttle here. He did just shift up, but he's not going for the move. David Burns is going to try to snipe him.
All right, we've got ourselves a classic absolute beginners league Formula Neagle last lap showdown here, Joe, between two of the titans in this series, Philip Hammer and David Burns.
Off the final corner, Barney waves the white flag. 1 to go for these two. Nobody near them. They are free to fight as they please. But it looks like David Burns has his strategy set in mind. If you're Hammer, do you try to maybe potentially give up the lead before you get to Moss Corner? He doesn't through Clayton. And certainly Burns is not looking here yet. Maybe Hammer sends a little wide intentionally here into Quebec. It's going to be his last real good shot unless he lifts on the way down into 4. No, he's going to try and hold the lead. Can Burns finally be the first one this season to beat Hammer?
Well, we'll have to see here. It's all going to come down to the jump off of Moss Corner. If David Third Degree Burns can get this done, he's got a good shot. Looks good there. Lost a little bit coming off a corner exit, but a wider run there from Hammer. That's going to open the gap to about 0.3 of a second. Here comes Burns. Watch for Hammer to defend down to the inside.
So they accelerate their way up the straight. David Burns has the speed. Hammer is a sitting duck. What can he do to try and fight back? Will he be aggressive down into turn 8? He's got a little bit of an overlap, and he's got the right-hand side. DJ seems to think that's the place to go. Will that be the case? He gains a little bit back, but now it's going to switch back in favor of David Burns. He carries it around the outside with a ton of speed, but he keeps it well, and he's got a nose ahead coming off the corner. Burns has better momentum. He has got it. David Burns will win here in Canada.
Oh my goodness, David Third Degree Burns proving me wrong and winning that race by sheer force of will alone, hanging it around the outside. A great run for the 125.
Fantastic stuff, just never gave up. Salander's going to be your third place finisher ahead of Tolini, and Bamber had to settle for 5th in the end. Vandenbeld up 5 to get himself 6th place. Our biggest mover might be Magruder, though, who's up 6, and he's going to get 9th as he just overtook Beifeld there on the last lap.
Yeah, good run there for Magruder. He'll be very, very happy with that run. Waiting now for the last couple of drivers to come across the line. Let's go back and check out a replay.
I thought when he had the inside and a nose ahead here at White's, I thought that's it. That's job done. But no, he gave the space, and fairly so, and just using that outside speed, almost NASCAR style, David Burns has taken the win and finally stopped the reign of Philip Hammer. We're going to take a quick break, though. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, so stick around. Watch from Nathan's view. Wow. Wow. Cat-like reflexes.
Oh goodness, Sebastian Coffre, another mistake for him, and he is a sitting duck down the front stretch here with the double draft here for Overbay and Ritters. Are they going to make it 3 wide? Ritters goes for it on Overbay, while Overbay goes for it on Coffre. Up the inside, coming into Clayton Corner, and Coffre might have to yield here. He's already lost the place to Overbay. He's going to switch to the outside and try and widen the entry to keep Ritters behind him. Looks like he is going to do that late apex, and that will work out all right for Sebastian Coffre, but it's slim pickings at the moment for the number 28.
Welcome back to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. We just saw the battle for the lead here in round 4 go to David Burns, and it was just over 1/10 of a second over Philip Hammer. Decided on the last corner of the last lap. Andre eventually settled into third place. He wasn't a factor in that battle for the lead at the very end. As you can see, he was a full 16, almost 17 seconds behind. Tellini was fourth, and then Neil Bamber rounds out your top five, slipping from third. Johan van der Belt managed to get up to sixth as Remco Pleijer was seventh and Josh Brain eighth. Terry McGruther up from 15th to 9th was followed by Marcus Beifeld in the top 10.
In 11th, it was Jean-Francois Tendeschet, and then 12th was Dana Bose with Kai Alvstad and Tony Hayes in 13th and 14th. 15th was Nicholas Anderson, followed by JT Koppanen, Johan Dorsers, and Titus de Jong behind them, finishing the drivers that finished on the lead lap. Klaas Loden was 19th, and Ludwig Sauer 4 laps down in 20th.
And then you see our last three who were unfortunately DNFs today, Randall, Heinen, and Podacek. DJ, I got to be honest, I thought that we were going to go this whole season with Hammer sweeping and taking every single win, but yet again, he can't seem to get every single one down. Just always one race that at least seems to elude him.
Yeah, indeed. I really thought that he was going to be able to do it as well, Joe, but let's not take credit necessarily away from Hammer. Let's give some credit here to David Burns, because that was a very, very inspired drive. We talked about the heads-up play on that penultimate lap, not going for the overtake. He knew what position he wanted to be in, and he kept himself in it to make that move on the last lap.
Usually we get to talk to David Burns, but he has not appeared yet. He must be off busy spraying some champagne after this one, knowing that he finally managed it this season. There he is. Now he has come down from his celebrations to join us here. So let's chat with the 125 driver, David. We were watching very carefully in those last laps, you and Philip swapping back and forth. We kept wondering who is going to try and position themselves for the end for maybe sniping. And when we saw you lift on the penultimate lap, we kind of figured we had your strategy sussed out.
Yeah, gee whiz, that required a lot of effort. It was actually a lot of effort to try and match his fuel strategy, because I was gaining a lot from watching him, and I'd figured it out. So it was staying in a lot higher gear and placing it. Oh my God, I can't believe I beat him on that last lap. That's such a bad.
Now, as we were talking during the race, we mentioned how it is possible to battle side by side through the S's. We've seen it happen many a time. But DJ theorized that the inside into the first part of the S's is where you want it to be, because it gives you the inside for the last corner. But that's not where you were. How did you manage to pull that off?
Because I've raced this track, so it's actually probably next to Road Atlanta. It's probably one I've raced in official so many times. I cannot for the life of me make the inside work. The inside is good if you're ahead enough that you can carry the speed. But the problem is, if you're 2x2 with the car on your outside, if you've got enough drive on the outside, you can make the outside work. So anytime I've won a race here, it's always been on the outside for the last corner. So I had to get the outside for the last, the third last corner for the chicane. Man, I didn't believe that would work.
We couldn't either. I even said on the broadcast, I thought once the inside was given to Hammer on the last turn, that was it, and race was over. But you came back with incredible speed. But next round, those shenanigans with the Slipstream are going to come in handy. We finish up at the finale at Le Mans. You looking forward to that?
Yes, a lot. I love Le Mans. Just one thing I want to say is much respect to Hammer, because there are some drivers that will just barge into the last corner no matter the cars on their outside. So a lot of respect to Hammer. He's a very good racer. So a lot of respect to him, definitely, for that. But yeah, Le Mans, yeah, so looking forward to it. I can't wait.
Awesome. We are looking forward to it as well. As that was your winner today, David Burns in the 125. And then up next from Scandinavia, Andre Salander is with DJ.
Andre, a bit of a race of defense there for you, as you certainly were trying to hold off a lot of drivers behind you, but third place got to feel good.
Yeah, it really does. This is my first podium in this league, so it feels really happy after a couple of seasons to finally grab my first podium.
I was actually wondering if that was true or not. So what is it? Was it just the chips falling your way? Is this a track you like? What do you attribute the first podium to?
Well, it was both kind of raw pace, which I could feel, but also like my strategy today was really good. It was really on top with my fuel calc and that I was able to do an extra lap compared to Neil and Tellini, and therefore I managed to get a shorter second pit stop.
Well, in terms of that, the fuel calc and all of that, were you doing a decent amount of fuel saving, or was it just being able to kind of get that fuel saving done through the corners, or was it a lot of draft-dependent fuel saving?
So it was a lot of draft-dependent fuel saving after my first pit stop, because then I ended up behind both Tellini and Neil Bamber. So therefore it wasn't necessary for me to keep pushing, and instead just tuck behind and manage to save some fuel.
Well, you did a fantastic job for it, and congratulations on the first podium of your career here in the ABL. Anybody you'd like to thank?
Yeah, of course, I want to thank my team, NHR Esport, and I hope that I can manage to get my teammate Heikki Camara to come and join me, because we are fighting for the team championship too.
Well, we wish you all the luck in the world, Andre, and congratulations once again.
Thank you so much.
That was Andre Salander, your first-time podium finisher and third-place driver here today.
Which is going to wrap up our interview. Someday we'll have to find out if Philip Hammer can speak good enough English so we can talk to him, or if we can get someone to translate potentially, because love to get his thoughts. He's been so dominant. But we're going to wrap up with a big thank you, of course, to the league, the Absolute Beginners League, for bringing us back for another season of coverage here on ABL, and also to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. Check out the screen for more of her great work. And also thanks to the team today, DJ, Ryan, and Dougie. You can find more info about GSRC at globalsimracingchannel.com or through our social media. Also, check out our merchandise store at simply gsrc.storenvy.com, and there's a link in the description below for it. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment, because like we said, in 2 weeks' time, it's off to Le Mans for Sunday, May 15th at 2 p.m. Eastern, and it's going to be the last race of the season for them. Up next, though, we got more to come here on this Sunday, as the Sunday Drivers' Cup is actually at Okayama at 4:50 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.